Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure catching up with CEO and co-founder of Versus Technologies, Versus.io, Gabriel Rene. Listen, we've got a lot to catch up on, and you can talk to us, about Versus, but also I really want to jump into what's going on with AI, and kind of that be the theme of what we're going to focus on today.
Yeah, well, it's great to be back, Andrew. Always a pleasure to sit with you and chat. I think what's happening is seems unpredictable. It turns out it's actually predictable. Not the pace, but the timing. So if you look back at the last few decades, it turns out that there's a theme that every 15 years, the entire technology stack upgrades. And so if you look at the computing era, you have essentially, like, go back to the 60s and 70s, you got mainframe computers with a bunch of scientists that work in one computer, right? And then 1977, Apple really comes out, the first personal computer, right? And this is a radical idea that these sort of large computers could suddenly be on your desktop, and that consumers and anyone would have this power of personal computing. And so there you've got programs that we download, right? The data's on our local drive, and the desktop becomes this sort of interface, right? So you've always got this sort of like interface, logic and data tier in any computer system. All right, 1977, let's fast forward 15 years. 92, World Wide Web emerges, right? Same stack. Now you're gonna have a browser interface, and you're gonna have websites instead of programs, and then you're gonna have the data now on someone else's computer, right? Web servers. Okay, well, let's fast forward 92, 2007, 15 years. Steve Jobs walks out, introducing iPhone, right? The smartphone era begins. Okay, now the whole interface changes. It's a touch screen interface. It's apps, it's not websites anymore, right? And the data is now in the cloud. All these apps are hosted in the cloud. So that's 2007. What's 15 years from 2007? 2022, right? We go right into the holidays. Thanksgiving, no one's talking about AI. By Christmas, a lot of people talking about AI. After New Year's, no one can stop talking about AI. And
Yeah.
That's 2022. So what's happened? What's happening right now? That logic layer in the middle, the meat of the sandwich here between the interface and the data, goes from programs to websites to apps to AI. So AI is the new app.
Yes.
There's going to be AIs for everything, just like there were apps for, there's an app for that one. Now there's going to be a smarter app, and it's going to be powered by AI, right? The interface is going to shift. It's not just a single device. It's multiple devices, Internet of Things and smart home devices and autonomous cars and drones. You're going to have, eventually you're going to have Apple come out with these new glasses. You're going to have holographic data sets. So that it becomes more natural, more intuitive ways of interfacing. And you get this whole new logic layer, which is basically AIs instead of apps. And the data ends up being, not just in the cloud, but actually computing on the device, what we call the edge. So the big takeaway there is AIs are the new apps. And so what we're seeing now is ChatGPT, Midjourney, these other sort of generative AIs exploding on the scene, going from essentially 0 to 100 million users in 2 months, right? So in December, we've never seen anything this fast, and literally rocking the entire technology space. Search, as we know it, is already completely blown up, for better or worse, for Microsoft and Google here, where now instead of just going to a website, asking for some question, hoping for an answer and getting a list of results but no answers, now they're attaching an agent, an AI that will provide you an answer. You have a Q&A with, can summarize websites. Now there's a whole industry that's been built around getting people to go to your website. If an AI is now sitting on Bing and pulling bits of the web out, and you don't click on those links, SEO is toast. You could argue the whole World Wide Web at the moment is going to be, it's kind of shaking in its boots. Even interfacing though with apps going forward are going to be AIs. You're not going to go to DoorDash. You're not going to go to Uber. You're not going to go to hotels.com or their app. And AI is going to be the new interface for everything. It's going to order the sandwich. It's going to order the car. It's going to book and update your reservation, right? And it's going to provide summaries of information for you. It's going to crawl the web. It's going to crawl your personal files. And like, imagine all the information you've collected over the last 25 years and all the different databases and apps and websites and, services. Imagine if you could just had a personal search engine with your own AI that you could interface with. So this is a complete sea change. And versus we started developing our technology in 2018, wrote a book about it in 2019 with the anticipation of this moment in time, and that we would emerge and be able to be the infrastructure layer upon which these now millions of AI applications we think will be built. And so it's a really exciting time for us as a company in the AI space, where we're looking to be sort of horizontal infrastructure layer for AI. And it's a really just an exciting time in technology, and even perhaps in society in general, because the implications around this are certainly profound. So looking forward to chatting about all this stuff with you today.
Yeah, I mean, it is massive and a little bit more trickier to explain to people until January. And they got to play with ChatGPT and they go, oh, holy smokes. And that's just one application. I mean, the brain can then kind of extrapolate from there as to like what you're talking about. And people are kind of recognizing that now. They go, oh my goodness, this one app has changed things in people's heads so quickly. There's going to be a lot of that coming down the pipeline very, very fast. $10 billion, yes. I think, by Microsoft that they're going to spend on their Bing version of it. And I think it is great to highlight that you're a cognitive computing company, because you've added on someone very, very impressive just a couple months ago that's helped with this actually being AI. And we'll get into that kind of discussion of reminding people of machine learning, deep learning, and actual AI, because I think that's a very important distinction. And then of course highlighting that KOSM, that you're the developer of this new platform, and why that's such a big deal too.
We've been working for the last couple of years with arguably the world's #1 neuroscientist, Professor Karl Friston from University College London, as an advisor to the company. We hired a lot of people in a particular category of neuroscience called computational neuroscience that specialize in this approach to AI called active inference, which is basically the idea that an AI is able to learn in real time, which is not what the current state-of-the-art AIs are able to do. And so we had a thesis based on our work that what you really wanted to do was have a completely different approach to artificial intelligence, or what we call intelligent agents, than what's the norm. It harkens back to that industrial age of computing, right? That's how AIs are made today. It's like, instead of a big room with one computer and a bunch of scientists, you have a big room with a bunch of computers and a bunch of data scientists. And so in the case of like ChatGPT, that's built on GPT-3. That's the third iteration. It basically takes 2 years to build one of these AIs. It's essentially an industrial product. And they have to, these data scientists kind of train it, and they, you run through what's called a neural net. It's these little, kind of like a little digital factory worker. You give it a, million examples of something, and each of these little factory workers have these lineups, and they kind of weight what they think might be in there. And what you get is this statistical output, right? And that's the AI model that becomes a ChatGPT. It's kind of like you got this almost like an intelligence cheesecloth. And if you take enough big data and you pump it through 100 billion parameters, you get this like massive Excel sheet in the sky with a bunch of joins. And when you ask it a question, it goes and does that computation and gives you the answer. So even though it has the appearance of intelligence, the current approach to AI has really come out of the lineage of statistics, not neuroscience, not how the brain operates. And it is still this really heavy industrial process. And by the way, we're seeing real fails here. Google came out, kind of blew the demo because the answer was wrong. Several answers were wrong. $100 billion got taken off the market cap that day. Microsoft, was the winner of last week. Although if you go back and look at the analysis, a bunch of the answers were actually incorrect, and people have pointed those out. Yesterday, Wall Street Journal article talking about ChatGPT, essentially the Bing GPT, right? The Bing AI gaslighting people. Threatening them. Yeah. Tesla's regularly crashing into things that no 17-year-old kid would do, even if they'd only been driving for a year. The problem with this approach is it presumes that everything that you need to know about the world and interacting happened before.
Yes. Yeah.
and it's incapable of it incorporating new information and new knowledge. And so this sea change moment is about as similar as taking that big industrial computers and putting one on the desktop, right? And I think we're going in, it's not the personal computing era. I think we're going into the personal intelligence era, right? It's like everyone's going to have their own personal intelligent AI, but you can't just process that industrial thing down into a desktop. You need a whole different approach, which is what everyone, those hobbyists that were messing around with the early PCs were doing. Well, that's what Versus has done as a company. And this is why Karl Friston and his work is so material. It's that we have a completely different approach. It doesn't rely on big data. It enables a general intelligent agent to learn about anything and adapt and incorporate new knowledge in real time. And that data can come in from databases, it can come from IoT sensors, it can understand the physics of the environment, it can understand the logical structures of how humans think. And this is really the breakout moment that over the course of the next year, we expect to demonstrate, not just in the enterprise space, which we've had some great traction, but also launching our first consumer product where people are going to be able to start to experience personal intelligent capabilities for themselves.
There's so much there, because let me jump in with Dr. Karl Friston. This guy's the most cited neuroscientist ever. I attempted to get my head wrapped around like his free energy principle, which I think is in part being used, and you're taking probabilities and then anticipation of probabilities of outside your senses, and that's,
yes,
I could grasp maybe 5% of this whole kind of idea, but enough to go, oh yes, as a human being, we're able to have intuition and into something. Because yes, we've got past history to equate pretty quickly of don't touch hot stove. But at the same time, right, we can also measure things with an anticipation of an event happening and a predictive outcome as well before it occurring, which would be the AI type of thing. Everything we've done now, like ChatGPT, is a scouring of up until I think it was 2 years ago's data on the web.
That's right. So ChatGPT, when you go on the webpage, says may have limited knowledge of anything after 2020 or before 2021, and because it took them 2 years and that was the web data that they crawled. So it doesn't know that there was, that there are potentially weird balloons or UFOs flying around the United States. It doesn't know that there's horrific earthquakes in Syria and Turkey. It doesn't know that who won the Super Bowl. It doesn't know that it has 100 million users. And this is what Bing sort of hacked together with the combination of a real-time search engine and ChatGPT. And I think that is a very cool direction. Yeah. But as you pointed out, it's not really how we think and learn. And one thing that you got one thing very accurate about the free energy principle, but I think you missed the part that is the real novel part. So you have a free energy principle or active inference, which is essentially Karl's scientific discovery, essentially states that in order for something to be intelligent, it has to have a model of the world that isn't just statistical. It has a set of beliefs about what would happen if it did something.
Okay, yeah.
So it has to presume or have some assumptions about, if I do this, I expect this result. ChatGPT, you ask a question, gives you an answer. It's just input, output, input, output. It is not curious about whether or not it got the right answer or you like the answer. There's no there to have an opinion, to have a perspective, have a belief. So our approach is the exact opposite. It presumes that intelligence is something that has a perspective, has a belief, not just a set of sort of like, let's say, hard-coded or even soft-coded goals, but rather that you anticipate what might be contributing to the data. It's like real intelligence would assume that if smoke was coming out from the underneath a door and you touched the doorknob and it was hot, you would guess about what was happening on the other side of the door, right? And that's not a statistical thing. That's understanding the origins of how data emerge and how phenomena are related. So the three things I always take away from this is you need a model of the world, right? That is an accurate reflection. You need an agent that can test its theory in the world and then update its knowledge.
Yes.
Right. And then finally, you need a way to communicate that knowledge to other systems. Being intelligent all by yourself, which is what all these current AIs are in their own little silo, in their own little world, is not enough. And so the kinds of intelligence that we want to enable is more like a network of intelligence. We wrote a paper about this called Ecosystems of Intelligence from first principles, which is our thesis about how AIs actually permeate the world and how important it is for them to be able to have us and them to have sympathetic relationships. If they can't take perspective, their perspective, they will not be able to take our perspective. So teaching perspective taking is central to this. And that's not something that a giant lookup table, no matter how smart it might appear, is able to do.
Yes, I think that's such an important distinction. And it's interesting because you've answered a question, but I'll ask it just kind of flat out because it'll get off the table.
Yeah.
People always say, well, wouldn't Google, we already know they're working on this, wouldn't Microsoft, wouldn't they all be doing this AI? And I want to get off the table because I heard it for weeks and months, and I'd say, yeah, of course they are, but they're working on a different angle. Their perspective and approach is very different than the one you guys are working on.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always a really valid question. If you look back in history at these moments where there's a major shift, it's never the incumbent. So, Apple was not the incumbent. IBM was the incumbent. Like DEC, they were like big corporate, computing companies. I think there's a classic joke from, I can't remember, it was one of the senior C-suite people at one of those companies at the time, that said they couldn't imagine a market for more than 5 computers in the world. You just needed these, right? I think we're at 50 billion, today with the IoT. So that was incorrect. So usually there's a DNA that's in the company, and the company has a thesis, and that's what they're playing out. If you look at a company like Tesla, right? It's not like there was the Prius, which was kind of a hybrid approach, but there was no pure play like long range, good looking electric vehicle. And yeah, but there's Detroit, there's Toyota, there's Mercedes, there are car companies been around for 100 years. Why aren't they building it? And the answer is because that's not, they're just maximizing their current product. They're optimizing. You ask people what they wanted, when the car was invented, they'd say faster horses. And so everyone is always trying to do faster horses. They're not thinking of the sea change, right? Yes. I mean, even the Wright brothers, Wilbur, a couple of years before that, when they were exploring it, said human flight will not happen for 100 years. 2 years later, 2 or 3 years later, they did it, right, on a beach. It's never the incumbents. In fact, in the story of technology, it is very reliable. Everybody missed social media, right? Yep. Facebook just comes out of nowhere. So even AI here is open AI. It's not. Now, Google and the others have been working on similar products, and I fully expect to see big breakouts here over the next several years. And the big guys are prepared and they are playing, but they're playing in an entirely different field than us. And we think that we are the Tesla of AI. We are the Apple of AI. We are going to be the breakout alternative approach that is frankly better, cheaper, and faster, and can be connected and composed together, that can network themselves and actually interact at scale. They'll be able to interact with software and applications, websites and devices, hardware, robotics, and the rest. And so I think that we've been preparing for this moment, and they're all just sort of waking up to it.
And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, you've been spending years with the standards, commission that to build the protocols.
Yeah. And so, when we first realized that this was possible, that there was a different approach to modeling knowledge and information that wasn't based on neural nets, but that really derive a pretty impressive implicit understanding of the world. And this is why ChatGPT is so amazing. Midjourney and others that are able to generate, images and photos and paintings. And there's ones that are trying to generate music, generate video. These are great, but this is like hammer, wrench, screwdriver, they're single use tools, right? We started to develop a knowledge modeling language, and we went to the IEEE once we had established a couple of years worth of research around that, and decided to make that a public utility. So this is kind of like how HTML and HTTP are the basis for the World Wide Web today. You need a standardized way of laying out information on pages and linking those pages together. We did the same thing, but a little more like a game engine, where the game engine can model, let's say, all kinds of objects and activities and fluid and wind and, the physics of an environment. So our language is able to do that in a multidimensional way. And that was the basis under which then we started building out KOSM. And KOSM essentially being our sort of virtual cloud-based operating system, upon which then, we're rolling this out for third-party developers to start being able to build, run, and then sell artificial intelligence applications. And we started by building some of our own applications on top of KOSM to demonstrate their effectiveness, to test their viability, to test our own thesis, and to show some market traction. We've had some great success there, but that's the whole basis. You've got that first layer, which is the standards, which are basically be free and available for everybody, right? The second layer is very difficult. That's the monetization layer, but that's also the infrastructure layer. We've spent the last 4.5 years building out on top of the standards that are based on the standards. Where the standards haven't been approved yet, they expect that sometime in 2024. By the way, then KOSM will be the first platform that people can use that will be standards based. And the point here is to enable AI, IoT, and sort of data and robotic interoperability and regulation. How do we govern these things, right? And so it's so important that there's a deeper level of understanding in these systems, these intelligent systems. That's required not just to enable interoperability between them, which gives you network effects, which is powerful and great, but also it gives us the ability to then have them understand what the restrictions are and be able to enforce rules and policies and laws. So when we had that sort of invention, that breakthrough ourselves, we really realized that it was, if these capabilities would supercharge intelligence of AIs, that we needed to make sure that we could have governance around them. So that's why we donated this as a public good to the IEEE, who standardize Ethernet and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and hundreds of the largest used standards in the world today, and then built our platform on top, and then built the first handful of first-party apps here. And why we're so excited now to be able to then roll this out really ahead of schedule. We had planned on rolling out KOSM the end of this year, and even then that was going to be for developers to kind of manually start to take data, put it together using our KOSM platform, and then deploy AI apps and agents. And in 2 years from now, I would hope for that to be a fully automated process. But we had some amazing breakthroughs over the last quarter, and now we have that process automated. And so this has actually moved us up from that capability where I'd expected to see us in a couple of years, and even the kinds and qualities of intelligent agents that we would be able to deploy. That's all then moved up, where next quarter we're going to start to begin to roll that out. And by the end of the year, I think that will be very mature. So really exciting moment in time. And yeah, that stack is what gives us both, I think, a market edge on one level, but also I think it's an important contribution to both science and the world of engineering in the technology space, because these things are going to live in our homes and in our streets and in our schools and in our lives, and then sometimes, some cases, like on our bodies. Like this Oura Ring tracks my biometrics and my sleeping pattern. So having the ability to have trust and interoperability and enforce privacy and security and laws around this stuff is absolutely critical. So we are the company and the guys that had a lot of foresight. We've been following the trends, working in advanced R&D for decades. We could see where the trends were going. We started developing the standards. We launched the company. We wrote a book about it, and we even took the company public so that the public could participate with us. Now, even with all that, didn't anticipate that the AI wave would explode so hard. And I think that the timing is just really extremely beneficial for us, and the market seems to be noticing that.
Yeah, and especially in challenging markets, because I say that the markets behave similarly to how this technology is, that in chaos, there's a lot going behind the scenes, and there's a lot of noise out there people are paying attention to that they shouldn't, because there's companies like yourself that are so focused on working ahead and making such leaps and bounds behind the scenes that if someone's not paying attention, they're going to get left behind. And the world is moving so fast now. If you don't keep up to speed, you're like, it's for anyone who's paying attention, they'll kind of go with the flow and rapidly kind of excel and learn as we go. Other people are going to get overwhelmed by the rate at which, especially just the AI growth that's coming down the pipeline.
I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a domain expert, and this is overwhelming. I agree. I think that, but that's what these shifts look like. I mean, ironically, the markets and tech, merged, so 2000, after 2000, you really had like consumer technology and the World Wide Web really all start to kind of kick in. Google really kind of comes out of 2001 as the leader in the search space. And you could argue that I know the tech space had just crashed there, but the market, really the modern tech market kind of emerges at that time. By the time it's 2007, 2008, right, the markets go down, and there you go. We're almost at that 15-year mark again. The markets, crash again. So there is this interesting, corollary, if nothing else, between the two. I think we're teed up now for the beginning of a 15-year technology and market run related to these technologies, and I actually expect this to be the biggest one of all.
This one here, it's kind of, I think it keeps some people away because of the enormity. But I think that's what ChatGPT has helped people to go. That's just one step here. And just to touch on like the permissions, that's a big part for people. They want to know, well, I don't want someone just taking my data. I want to have some say. Great. So we've got protocols. We're working on that. And we've spoken before about ChatGPT. It's getting what's publicly on the World Wide Web. It's not getting private analyst research from Goldman Sachs. That's behind a firewall. It's behind, you can't get access to that. So you have to then think of the layers and what kind of products you'd have to make for different layers to share and to interact. So having that foresight as to how it's going to work on the platform, it also answers the question as to why, if you are a major, you go, we already have a platform. We don't want to defunct it. It works. We're making lots of money. Why would we there's not a self-motivation. It's let's try to make something that interacts with our current network, not something totally reimagined.
Yeah, but when these things happen, you're forced.
You're forced to.
Every car company stood back and watched Tesla, right? Yeah. This isn't going to work. The market said, this doesn't make sense. The fundamentals are crazy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We won't talk about Elon today. That'll be a whole nother series. But then now where are we? Every single car company must. Even the regulations comes down. So the markets are forced to go in the directions that wherever the actual lead is. And it's just often that it's not the big fish that are in the lead. And so, yes, Bing, who's been in the back of the field here in the search space, and Google's been the comfortably sitting up there, the 800-pound gorilla. They're incorporating these capabilities, but these were investments that those companies made fairly early on. Microsoft put $1 billion into OpenAI, I don't know, six plus years ago, right? Kind of as a bet. Now, when you got that much money, you can throw a couple dollars around and see, and you're always doing research on everything, so you never know what's going to pop. But just in a couple months, it's already completely shifted the search industry. And no one knows what the effects are going to be over time. But what's happening, Andrew? We're going to shift from a pull model where you got to go search for information. You got to go interact with an app. Like the best approach here for users is a push model, right? Where something smart enough understands you better than you do, to the degree that it's pushing the things that you want, to you. And so what's happening is AI is just going to be this ideal interface to interface with all the other digital things in our life, because we thought that digital technology was going to make our life easier. And in many ways, it's made it more complicated. There's more information to sift through. We're drowning in tidal waves of data and information. Even these sort of curation services and apps just give us like I remember the first time Netflix or whatever came out, it's like, oh, cool, I'll just watch an app. Oh, but then they only have this content. So then and now I've got 10 apps for all the content. And it's like, now we're back to I was like, well, we're unbundling, but then you rebundled it. And now you just siloed everything, right? Yeah. And so it was like, what do you need TV for? Everything's in one place. Well, no, now I've got, Netflix, and that's not on TV. So these kinds of, technology is in many ways complicated our lives, and our interactions with technology, while amazing in many ways and enriching in many, have also, had the opposite effect. And they're distracting, and they're constantly we're constantly being data mined for our attention. Wouldn't it be nice if that paradigm shift actually occurred, right? Wouldn't it be nice if there was something filtering everything for you, pulling out the right things and bringing them to you, adjusting even just think of the administrative cost of your life, right? What if there was something that could just handle that? Because all of the administration happens as a mediation through digital technologies, databases, websites, emails, documents, apps, right? That's what I think is about to happen. And if this is the case, then that kind of offset we did in the industrial age, where we offset physical labor to machines, well, now we're going to do that with mental and cognitive labor in the intelligence age. And I think we've just shifted, not from the industrial age to the information age, but I think we've just shifted from the information age to the intelligence age. And my hope here is that what we get is a much smarter world out of it.
And that's so exciting. Just thinking of examples of having an interactive, personalized avatar or digital twin that's going to, be my virtual assistant. It's going to remind me, oh, you have the following things to do, instead of me just typing in, like, just on the small scale. It'll organize my life. It'll know what I like because I spend enough time sharing with it my hopes, my dreams, what I'm really looking for. And the more I do that, the more it learns about me, the better it's going to be at aiding me in whatever direction that I'm going in life, whether it's like the arts or it's towards finances, or it's this or that. I'm only catching parts of the glimpse every once in a while when I get to talk to you, because it's tough, because it's so big and it's so exciting. And this will lead me to the next question, which I always get is, oh, well, then where are all the big, companies? Where are all the big Fortune 500 companies? How come they're not working with them all? I'll let you answer that one.
Well, we have a very long list of Fortune 500 companies queued up that we've been talking to over the last 18 to 24 months that I've just frankly just been waiting for us to be able to give them the tools to be able to build it into their platforms and systems and design their own agents and applications. So in part because we wrote the book became quite popular in the tech space, but also, that came out in 2019, the book's entitled The Spatial Web, How Web 3.0 Will Connect Humans, Machines, and AI to Transform the World. And it became an international bestseller. And then Deloitte picked it up in 2020, and they wrote a report, what business leaders need to know about the next era of computing, quoted in that report. And that went out to all their CIOs and CTOs across the Global 1000. At that point, we started getting all kinds of crazy inbound interest from CIOs in $100 billion companies around the world. And so really we've just been trying to accelerate our developmental timeline to get to the point where then we could really start to scale, because we can only really scale by being infrastructure layer upon which everybody builds their applications. Apple builds no apps anymore, right? And in 2007 they came out and said, here's Apple Maps, and here's Calculator, and here's email, and here's right. And then 2008, here's the first 500 apps in the App Store. And now there's 5 million across that in the Android store. So that's really the idea here. This is the year where we get to make that transition. And so, yes, the big companies are queued up, and we're here to help them. But also, I think what's really exciting is we're going to extend these capabilities to everyday users. And this is where I think there's a whole consumer play that wasn't even on the radar, frankly, for us, this decade. So that all that's accelerated very rapidly. And I think, we're going to roll into this whole new era. And my expectation is, we're going to try to drive this company to be, not just a company that where you and I get to have these talks, Andrew, and a handful of you are listening, but maybe one of the companies that everyone's talking about next Christmas.
I saw that path. I mean, you were able to attract the vice chairman from Deloitte to come on over, join the team over at Versus. So that's a big step. You've announced the Blue Yonder, which is a massive conglomerate that is partnered with you right now, amongst other partners, to put out Wayfinder, which is your first lead kind of app, or bot or program, whichever. I wonder what's the technical term they're going to use.
Yeah, it's an agent that is in the form of an app, right? That basically guides warehouse workers through warehouses more effectively and efficiently. And Blue Yonder is the largest warehouse management solution provider in the world. 3,500 companies. Half of the companies your local mall probably run on Blue Yonder in their distribution centers. They're in 80 countries around the world. And so now they're deploying our Wayfinder agent application into their warehouse management system, and then reselling it to all of their customers, which will kick off sometime next quarter, and expect to see significant revenues from that over the coming next three or 4 years. Probably $1 to $2 million per customer, with targeting 10% conversion of their, say, 3,000, 3,500 customers. So you can see just with one agent in one industry with one reseller, a path to really significant revenues. So on top of that, being able to roll out some of our new capabilities, which I'll be able to share with you on our next call, that are more about giving companies the ability to, just like you and I have this problem where all of our data is in different places, in different systems, in different apps. So companies have it far worse. The data is in different systems, and they grew it through acquisition. So the data schemas and formats are incompatible. So imagine if you could just take all that and kind of have one intelligent search engine, not for your life, which we're going to hopefully roll out here for you and others to be able to test next quarter, but also for companies to be able to make sense of all that data, ask important questions about costs and expenses, and then they'll begin to do predictions and recommendations, and then even eventually deploy workflows and operation efficiencies like Wayfinder does today. So I think we're at the intersection of a very exciting moment in time, and we're really well positioned to scale in 2023.
And I think it's good. It's good to mention too how nimble you get to be and agile, because say with a Blue Yonder, you've got a strong partnership with them where you're just like, they'll do all the heavy lifting. I mean, they're getting compensated. They're very motivated. They love it, and it works. So that, like, you kind of plug and play. You don't have to go, let's build out a 500-person sales team to call all these companies to pitch them all day. It's like, that's right. That's not what we want.
Yeah, we want to scale our enterprise side of the house through the types of reseller relationships and systems integrators like Blue Yonder, like Deloitte and others. This is how Salesforce and the other big software as a service companies grow. Deloitte sells $2+ billion worth of Salesforce every year. They are the integration masters, along with Accenture and a few others in that space. So that's how we scale the enterprise side, is that make sure we're a great infrastructure play. We're enabling these horizontal capabilities, but let the whalers handle the whales.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap this up, but I always like to ask I know there's going to be so much coming down in this sector the next year. So this seems like a silly question, almost like, what are we looking for as milestones in the next 3-6 months? What could we hope for? What are some news we should be looking for? What people should be paying attention to?
Well, we are intending to roll out our competitor to ChatGPT. ChatGPT cannot crawl the web. It doesn't have any information about the world outside of 2021 when it did crawl the web. It can't access any of your local information on your hard drive or any of your applications. Can't interface with any outside systems. So this new type of general intelligent agent, we're going to start rolling this out to on a closed beta basis, and then by quarter start to extend that. I think that the demand on that will increase quite significantly on a quarterly basis. And then there will be monetization opportunities similar to how ChatGPT has sort of subscription fee today that I think will convert very well as we move through the year. And we'll also be rolling out some of our new enterprise products, like the one I just mentioned, where you get this type of search engine, and some of the pilots that we're working on now that are testing out these products. We hope to announce some of those with some very large multi-billion-dollar partners that we're piloting with now, and probably have quite a bit to share. Also, Blue Yonder traction as we go into Q2 and Q3, so we'll start to see some revenues ticking up there. And by the time we get to Q4, it's really hard to say, because with the traction on all those different fronts, and our ability to now scale because we've automated our pipeline, I mean, sky's the limit.
I like to throw comparables out there a little bit sometimes too. Is if you look at something that's close to a pure play like you guys, AI, you got like C3.ai Inc., and it's a $2.6 billion company. And just to put that into perspective, versus you're at 54 million. So if someone asks, well, what's the potential upside to this? There's just a start. This is the start of this. There's a quick milestone one could look at.
That's a great example. C3.ai, I think it really one of the companies that took a big hit in the AI space, along with all the tech companies last year, but has rebounded, I think, on some of the AI interest. Their approach to AI uses that old industrial process, where our approach is quite different. So, what takes them quarters to kind of prepare, we're able to basically do it in an explicit format in a fraction of the time. So a better, faster, cheaper approach to developing AI, and a new kind of platform for people to be able to build and sell and run this next generation of artificial intelligence. I expect us to be one of the top names, as we go into 2024 and beyond. And yeah, we look forward to competing with C3.ai in the market.
Well, I love it because this is the type of one where my brain will keep me up at night, like thinking about what all can come and probably is coming, and to be part of that, even if it's just a small part, is very exciting. So that's why we want to get this story out, to get them aware that they can be part of this as well. Reach out to us. Thank you so much, Gabriel. It was so great having this discussion, and of course, we're going to be watching like a hawk to see what comes next.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be here. Looking forward to next time.
Take care.
You too.